Alrighty folks, this is Lurch from Marlan Gaming and welcome back to another episode of From the Depths. I'm back with the Submarine, and I want to say first of all thank you so much for all your great suggestions on how to improve things. It's a little overwhelming, there's quite a lot of things to change. I have had suggestions from Zorbaldus. She's had a great idea for using penetration depth fuses instead of sabots. I have already tried that off camera. It's very, very effective, but I'll get to building that shortly. Also want to say thank you to Dell's Gaming, who stopped by and dropped some great advice, and Christian Schurhoff, I hope I got that right, for their suggestions to add front and rear hydrofoils, or like separating one for pitch and one for altitude, and I'm going to do that as well. Dell also suggested to add a detector with an emergency override so that I can avoid terrain at the seafloor, and I've a fairly good idea how I can go about doing that, so I'm going to add that as well. I strongly suggest any of you guys go and check out Dell's Gaming. It's his great channel. Like, I really knows his stuff about this game. Like, really knows his stuff. Muchly lots of the science. So, first things first, the name. I have decided on a name, and a couple of people have suggested it because of the way it looks. Is the Sturgeon. Okay, I know it's not very dramatic or evil or scary, but it's pretty fitting for the ship, and I'm going to make some cosmetic changes at the end to make it a little bit more Sturgeon-y. So, the first thing I want to do is sort out the new hydrofoils. So, I'm going to get rid of these, and I'm going to go with much less. So, bye-bye. But set them to a steeper angle, so I want them to be going at 45 degrees, and I think I'm going to tuck them underneath here as well. Great, that should be loads. Right, now we want to set the ACBs up, so rather than we're not going to be using these for altitude, we're going to be using them for pitch angle. I want to set these when the pitch angle is greater than, set the hydrofoils up here, and we don't want this here, right. Okay, when the hydrofoils are greater than, or the pitch angle is greater than 1 degree, so 1 degree, we want to tell the hydrofoils to go to negative 45. So that means if the angle of pitch, which is up this way, goes above 1 degree, it'll point the hydrofoils downwards and try and correct it and get it back level again. Another thing I want to do is set an effect range, which is kind of important. 10 should be way loads for those, because I'm going to be putting another ACB on this to, well, another couple of ACBs to control other hydrofoils, specifically for the proper, the defined altitude ones. Next we want to do our pitch angle if less than, controlling the hydrofoils again, if less than -1? Yeah, -1, we go to plus 45. Now another thing I want to do in these is set an effect delay of 1, and you'll see why later. I'll be using that for the like terrain avoidance thing at the end. So there. That's them all set up. So when pitch angle is, let's get this up. Pitch angle is less than 1 degree, affect hydrofoils and set them to -45. So whenever we're pointing upwards, it'll nose down, and then whenever we're pointing downwards, we will nose up. Lovely. Now next on the agenda, okay, we're already crashing into stuff. We really need that terrain avoidance thing. Next up, we're gonna need the hydrofoils in the middle for altitude control, and let's just rescue this thing. It'll rise while we're doing this. I want to put them probably around here, somewhere near the center of mass. Where is it? There, right. So what's under here? Okay, they can go here. There's missiles. So let's put a slope there. I don't like using internal hydrofoils because it's, well, I like to think that the water's passing over it in some way. And that it's nice for me, you know? I'm sorry, but that's the way I like to play the game. So we'll do that, put that there, and we'll get it. No, I want you. And beep. Sweet, right now. hydrofoils. More hydrofoils. Lovely, lovely hydrofoils. Make sure they're up the right way, because that is a thing. Right, we have some hydrofoils, and we're going to need ACBs to control them. And wow, look, perfect place for putting more ACBs. So we'll get these in here, and we want to have this one set to just activate on input every 5 seconds, or 0.5 seconds, hydrofoil, set hydrofoil to 0. And 10 should be loads for this, and we'll do an effect on this as well. 1 second. What did I do? I broke something. I did. 0. Glad I spotted that. Next we want to do our basic altitude ones. So when altitude is greater than, say, we're going to set these a little bit lower this time. No, not 790, good lord. Minus 79 effect. We want to turn downwards. So whenever the altitude is above 79, we'll turn ourselves down. And we want to set the effect range down. These are very, very close, but 10 should be fine. And we want to set the effect delay again. Oh, what's going on here? Oh yeah, we're getting raised up by the power of the caps lock key. We've done when greater than. Now we have to do when altitude less than. Set the hydrofoils. When altitude is less than, we want to turn that to go upwards, and it's going to be set to 80. So whenever we go below 80 degrees, or 80 meters, no, negative 80, damn it. Whenever we go below negative 80 meters, it'll pitch the hydrofoils in the middle here, upwards, so that it will give us some lift, which is lovely. And they should all be set. Activate every 0.5. Set this to, yeah, that'll be fine. Loop. Right. What is next on the list? Okay, right. Time to have a look at the cannons. Now, I was worried that I would have to actually totally rebuild the cannons here, but I took them out and did a little bit of testing off camera, and the suggestion Zorbald made was bloody genius. Just changing up the ammo and using penetration fuse, timed fuses has really improved this cannon. So all I had to do to massively improve it is we've got a gauge increase. I got my symmetry on. We got symmetry. Where is symmetry? Give me symmetry. There we go. And I want to take two of these gauge cooling units and switch them out for gauge increasers, which gives us, whenever we go and remove the limitations on the barrel, gives us a 0 or a 120mm cannon, or 121. Now, trouble with this cannon and adding those extra gauge increases is it increases the size of the shell up to above 2 meters, so that's too much. We don't want that. We need to go into the shell configurator thingy. Where's the shell customizer? I'm lost in the middle here. And take one off the end here. There we go. Now, whenever this is set to 120, I'm going to go with 4 powder fuses, a super cavitation base, which gives us the underwatery thing, a timed fuse, hello the timed fuse, and 2 flak warheads. Now that may seem quite piddly on paper, and frankly it is, it's only like 123, but these land in salvos of 6, so it can actually be quite effective against metal armor, and in my testing it can make quite a significant dent in something like a Kingstead before actually running out of ammo. So yeah, that's really good. Oh, something else you have to add, obviously, if you're using time fuses, this is really important, is add a laser targeter. And you can actually sneak one in here behind this barrel, or behind the mantlet, because the mantlet does take up 2 spaces, but it sort of clips here and you can put stuff in here. So I'm just going to pop a laser targeter in here. Let's get symmetry on so we get 2 down at once. A lot of people have trouble connecting these. This is the way that you have to connect them, with the bottom down. You can connect it to a gauge increaser, a cooler, you can connect it to see these flat ends? You can connect it to those flat ends. You can connect it to a 6-way. But you just have to use that bottom side, and that is the crux of it. Very simple, but it is very hard to get connected correctly. Now, we want to set our offset time to positive 0.3 for this, because that just seems to be a little bit better. I find that because it doesn't compensate for the supercavitation delay, the shells were exploding consistently ahead of the target, so I had to add a little bit of an offset so that it would take things out correctly, and that really seems to work. Next on the list of improvements is the terrain detection. So let's get back down to the front here. Brum. I think I'm going to plonk it in here somewhere. One of those. Hey, bingo. Nice. Right, now when placing these ACBs, you have to use this back side. Well, what I would say is the back side for the direction that it detects in. And you need to set it if object in front within input meters, hydrofoils, set hydrofoil angle, all positive. And you want to set it to, well, I'm going to set it to about 30 meters this time. We don't want an effect range or an effect delay. This means that it takes precedent over all the other ones, and it's always allowed to activate under its own circumstances. So yeah, that's really, really cool. And all this will do is, whenever it detects terrain, it'll pitch all of the hydrofoils in the ship upwards, and it should go up really, really quickly. Now, we need to get the one in for the bottom two, so that's the right way up there. And it's configured in exactly the same way. If object within 30 meters, not spin blocks, hydrofoil, set hydrofoil angle to 45 degrees within 30. And that should be that. How very lovely. So as far as improvements are concerned, that should just about do it. Now, before we take it out on the field to give it a bit of combat testing, I think it needs a couple of cosmetic changes, so I am going to do them, and then I'll be right back. And there we have it, the Sturgeon in all of its glory. So I added a couple of the little... Oh, these are actually wrong. Screwed it up already. Well done, Lurch. That's the way I want them. The little tickler things underneath its chin. That's typical to Sturgeons. I've actually got a reference picture here I'm working off. This is based roughly on an Atlantic sturgeon, apparently. But yeah, I moved the big stupid wing thing off the side to make it look more fishy, and put these fins at the side. They look a bit like fins. I think they're pretty cool. I also moved a couple of stability thrusters up here, because I added this little lip around the turret so that it doesn't look quite so silly. I do remember someone mentioned that, and I kind of agree. It still peeks out a little bit whenever you're firing, you know, if your target's way off to the side, but it's fine. It still looks pretty cool. And last but not least, I added a little fin at the bottom here. So it all looks nice and pretty, and I think it's nearly time to show this guy off in action. So I think it's time for another montage for the submarine. Under its glorious new name, the Sturgeon. So, take it away, Mr. Sturgeon. So there we have it, folks, the Sturgeon Attack Sub. Very happy with how it ended up looking. The little cosmetic changes really sort of bring out the fishiness. I want to say thank you to everyone that made suggestions and comments about how to improve this thing, or even suggestions for names and stuff. There were some absolutely brilliant names, but sadly there can be only one, and this was actually one of the very first ones that was suggested. So yeah, I really hope you enjoyed the episode and the little montage thing, and it's really incredible how a slight change in ammo can turn something like this cannon from a piddly little sidearm into quite a considerable death machine. I mean, for goodness sake, we can take out a Kingstead now. Frickin' Kingstead! Actually, no, wait, it was a Bulwark. Derp, I always get those two mixed up. But anyway, yeah, I hope you enjoyed the episode. Any likes, subs or comments are really awesome. I love hearing from you guys and I read every single comment. As always, take it handy and have a bloody good day.